Cam, how are you?
Really good, thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling good. Been 7 weeks into pre-season now, so just saying earlier, it's the longest I've trained in pre-season for quite some time. But given I've finished all of my representative duties now with the Australian side, I was asked to come back fairly early this year.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, you're looking good, man. Definitely looking in top shape.
Thanks, mate.
So, is this your first podcast?
I think it is. Yeah, no, I've done obviously a fair few interviews on radio and live radio, or whatever. But first podcast, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, how good's that? Cam Smith first. Pretty cool. Cool, man. So last year you announced your retirement from rep footy, as you just mentioned, and then more recently you just signed a 2-year contract with the Storm. So talk us through that, because I think a lot of people were thinking you might not be coming back, and then you've come out and signed a 2-year at how old? 36 years old now?
Yeah, I'll be 36 this year. And I think a few people were sort of wondering why the 2 years, and I think most people expected me to go on with the Storm for another 12 months at least. But off the back of it's probably good that you raised the question of retirement from rep footy and why now the 2 years. But giving thought into how I'm feeling right now, both physically and mentally, it's as good as I've felt in my entire career, and I'm not too sure why that is. I've got a couple of thoughts on why I feel good, but coming off the back of last season where I didn't have any commitments to State of Origin or international football, give me a real opportunity to just assess where I'm at right now, and where I was that having to not fulfill those extra commitments, throughout the year, particularly with State of Origin, and give myself an opportunity physically to mend and mentally to refresh myself for another season. And when we got to the end of last year, I was feeling great and I was really enjoying my football. There's times where I was playing Origin and you're that fatigued and that worn down, and the amount of commitment you put into it mentally, it really was draining, and you'd sort of have periods throughout the year where you just thought, I can't keep doing this. But last year, not having those commitments with Origin, as I mentioned, it almost gave me a new sort of lease on life, particularly for my football. And so having discussions with my wife and my family, and knowing within myself that I was feeling great, and I posed the question to the Melbourne Storm about a further 2 years rather than 12 months. And, they had to consider that, and I understood that, given my age right now at 35, going on to 36. I guess it needed some time for them to digest that and consider whether that was a good option for the club. But they returned with the answer of yes. So it was great news for me. So it was great for me personally, but I think given our situation at the club right now, where we've lost a lot of experienced players, a lot of players that were involved in our organisation for a long period of time, and the turnover has now turned into a lot of young guys coming through, just starting out their career, I think I can add some value to the coaching aspect of football, not just as a player or as the captain of the club. I think when I can assist the coaches with trying to develop these young players now, and that was another consideration for me personally, was to opt for the 2 years rather than 12 months to try and progress these youngsters into regular first graders.
Yeah, great. It's exciting, man. So you said you're feeling better than ever. You're not sure why. Do you think it was having that just recovery from not playing all that extra footy through the year, or was it recently that you've had the time off, the off season, and now you're coming back and feeling better?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of not having to play those extra games. Sort of if you think about playing, the State of Origin series, the most demanding 80 minutes that you'll play in our sport is in the State of Origin. So there's 3 extra matches there. Then when you're playing in a Kangaroos tour or any sort of international tour at the end of the year, you could be playing 6 games. So in total, you could be playing an extra 9 matches.
Yeah, right.
And the position I played and the role I played in those two two representative teams, I was out there for 80 minutes. So 9 extra matches of 80 minutes of footy, it does add up. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add it on top of the 26 premiership games you play throughout the year, it's a lot of football. So that's certainly one aspect for me. But if I think back, I think I'll probably look back at the last probably 3 to 4 years where I've sort of changed a little bit with the way I've approached training. We're doing a little bit sort of different style of running with our conditioning work in Melbourne now, but particularly my mindset towards the gym, I think has certainly helped me. I've never been sort of the strongest or the most powerful guy in the game or even in my team, but I think my mindset has changed the last sort of few years when I'm working out to just trying to get the very best out of myself every time I'm in there, which in return I think has helped me feel physically great. So as a young fella, I probably wouldn't say bludged, but I didn't see the gym work or the physical aspect of the game as important as, let's say, out in the field doing skills. But certainly now, seeing the effects it has on me physically and having me prepared for each match and to get through a year, it took me a while to understand that, but it's certainly given me an opportunity now to keep playing well into my 30s, which not so long ago was really, it was never heard of. Guys would reach sort of 29, 30 and people would be looking for them to hang the boots up, whereas now, I'm turning 36 this year. There's a couple of other guys in the competition similar age, and we're still playing. So that's great for the older crew. We're flying the flag for the older boys. But I think those couple of reasons are certainly why I feel great at the moment.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. So your career has been amazing, other than your achievements, but that you've gone for so long without any major injuries.
This is something I can't. Yeah. This is something I can't explain.
Yeah, it's so amazing that you've got. It's even more amazing because you're probably taking more damage than anyone out there, because you've got, in regards to your records you hold for most tackles, right? So most impact really than any other player out there.
Yeah.
And yet you're not getting injured and you've got this longevity, but you're just unable to. Is there anything you do in training to mitigate it? Like you're trying to practice not getting yourself in the wrong position, or your recovery is really good, or is there anything at all that you've done to avoid that?
I think the main reason would be just my preparation and making sure that my technique, particularly in defence, is really sound. You see a lot of guys go out in the footy field sort of a little bit gung-ho and get their bodies in the wrong position, and that's when they do pick up injuries. Some are out of their control. Sometimes it's just a part of the game where they pick up an injury along the way. But I feel that if you prepare well, you understand the game, you understand the opposition and what they're gonna bring on game day, and know where to position yourself on the field. Then you can try and avoid those injuries. It's not like I'm out there hiding, as you mentioned.
Of course.
I think I'm close to my coach. Actually, funny you brought it up. My coach brought it up yesterday at training, saying that I've made nearly 15,000 tackles in the game. So I'd much prefer not to have made that. that many impact, that many in my career, but. Unfortunately, that's part of my job, but I'd like to think it's all down to preparation. Certainly hard work throughout the week to make sure that you've got your body physically prepared for the game, and that at some points, you're always carrying some sort of niggle, but you build a bit of a tolerance, you build a bit of resilience towards a bit of pain and carrying those little niggles that you need to get on with the job and go out and play your role for the team.
Yeah. Okay. Man, let's go back to the start. So you you grew up here in Brisbane, playing for Logan Brothers and going to Marsden State High, which is really cool because we've actually partnered with them last year. Right. So we're supplying them with their products and helping them.
That's great.
So were you always a star athlete when you were younger?
I wouldn't say I was a star athlete by any means. As I mentioned before, never sort of been the quickest or the strongest or anything like that. I was lucky to be given a set of skills that I was quite natural at rugby league, at footy.
When you say set of skills you were natural at, what do you mean in particular?
I was competent at passing the footy. I had good tackle technique. I understood the game. My father actually played sort of high level rugby league here in Brisbane in the Brisbane competition back in the 70s. So he didn't really. I wasn't forced into rugby league at all. There was obviously a footy around my house when I was a little fella, and I just picked it up, and I loved the game. My dad was always watching it on TV, and so I'd sit down and watch it with him, and just grew a love of the game through my parents, and I joined Logan Brothers when I was 6. Obviously, found a lot of friendships there, and that's the main reason why you start playing sport is because of the friendship factor of the game and playing the team sports. And so from a young age, I knew the game, I understood the game. I was pretty handy at all sports, to be honest. I was never the best, never the worst, but I was just sort of
you were naturally athletic.
Just natural at all of it. I just had good basic skills of all sort of games and good hand-eye, and that sort of type of kid you see sort of trying out all different sports. But rugby league was probably the standout for me. That's what I was best at when I was a little fella.
Right. If rugby league didn't sort of pan out the way it did, what would be the next sport in line?
Oh, geez.
You said you played a lot, so...
Yeah, well, I love golf.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Love golf.
Right.
Yeah, love golf. But I don't know. I like team sports, though. It's funny. I love golf, but I like team sports, so I don't know how I would have gone playing golf. It's just it's an individual sport. You need to have highly motivated to get yourself to the training and practice and all that sort of stuff all the time, and you're sort of out there all by yourself. I don't know. Cricket, probably.
Right. Okay.
Always cricket. I remember growing up back down in Logan, and summer holidays, it was cricket in my backyard all the time.
Yeah, every day, right?
Yeah. The bowling crease and the batting crease, by the end of summer, they'd just be dirt patches.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
By the end of summer, so I'll probably have a crack at cricket.
Yeah, right. Okay. And so coming through as a young fella, playing sport through school, and you're loving the social aspect and getting validation, I'm sure, from being someone who's good at it, like everyone does. Was there a moment throughout your schooling that you realized, hey, I'm actually really good at this. I'm gonna this might be something I do for the rest of my life?
It probably wasn't until later in school. So I didn't as a little fella always had a dream of playing rugby league professionally, but it didn't really get too serious until probably about 16 or 17, which was year 11, year 12. And it's funny you brought up the moment sort of if I had one through school. I remember sitting in biology class, and I think we just come back from lunch break, and it was the final 2 sort of classes of the day. I was having a chat to my mate or whatever, and I think the teacher was obviously talking, and she sort of pointed me out and said, Cameron, if you think rugby league's going to provide you a life, you got another thing coming, make sure you listen in class. And I sort of sat there and I thought, I'm going to prove this teacher wrong, and I have. So thank you, Mrs. Gilmore. That was really good advice. But I think for most kids, playing any type of sport and they want to make the elite level, I think it usually gets to that serious point around sort of 16, 17. It's where most, I know team sports, any type of elite club are starting to look at young talent around the 16, 17 years of age, where they're trying to identify that. And that was probably when I decided that I'm going to have a really red hot crack at this.
Yeah, right. So you're about to graduate high school, and do you get picked up by the Storm straight out of school?
Yeah, I was in year
Yep.
12. Yeah, I was in year 12. So the way it panned out was I was selected in a representative side for Brisbane, representing Brisbane, and we're playing a state carnival against all the other regions of Queensland up in Rockhampton. And so we went up there to play in the carnival, and I had a pretty good carnival, and I think our team ended up winning the competition. And then not long after that, a couple of the Melbourne Storm talent scouts, they approached my parents and said, we're quite keen on sitting down with you both, with Cameron, and chatting about our interest in him joining the Melbourne Storm. So that's how that came about. And of all the places, to sort of choose was Melbourne, who had only just joined the NRL competition 2 years prior, in '98. So I was in year 12 in 2000, and never ever would you have thought that you'd have an opportunity to play rugby league at an elite level in Melbourne or in Victoria. That's growing up as a young Queenslander, that's where AFL's played.
Yes,
there's no rugby league there at all, and I was always a Brisbane Broncos fan. So in my mind, if I had ever had an opportunity to play in the NRL, it was going to be for the Broncos. But the way it panned out, the Storm came knocking first, and that's where I ended up.
And so at that time, did you have any other clubs come to you before you signed into the NRL?
Yeah, I did. I had the Broncos ended up coming,
Yep.
showing some interest. This was just after the Melbourne Storm approached me. But at the time, looking at both squads and where they were at, I felt there was a greater opportunity for me for a pathway into the NRL team was in Melbourne.
Okay.
They only, at the time, they had a guy by the name of Richard Swain, who's a fantastic player. He set many records early on in Melbourne from games played and tackles and all this sort of stuff. He was a wonderful player. He was international, actually, represented New Zealand. But he was the only recognised hooker or dummy half at the club, in the entire squad. If ever he wasn't playing, they had like a utility there.
Okay.
Whereas at the Broncos, they had
people in line.
Oh, well, they had a lineup. Yeah, they had a lineup. And so if I went to the Broncos, I was probably going to be third or fourth in line for that role. So I thought, well, my goal is to play NRL. And I'm going to sort of back myself to do that. And I feel my best opportunity to do that is in Melbourne. As much as it hurt, because as I mentioned, I always wanted to play for the Broncos. But I think looking back at it now, it was a pretty wise decision.
Yes, it was.
to go to Melbourne.
That's a tough decision, man. Like a lot of people would find that decision hard to make because obviously growing up in Brisbane, you want to be in Brisbane. But you said you backed yourself. So has that been something that you've always been capable of doing? Because a lot of people find that hard. Like it's especially at that high level, man. You're only 17 at that point, turning 18.
Yeah,
playing with the best in the world. Like, what do you think it was that gave you the ability to make that decision to back yourself?
I think certain discussions with my parents certainly helped. It wasn't so much of a punt or a risk to choose Melbourne. I think it was more of it was very much an informed decision to go down there. But I just at the time I felt very confident in myself that by making that decision to go to Melbourne, that I'd have an opportunity. If I knew there was going to be a lot of hard work to get there, but I knew that if I worked as hard as I could and I certainly had the ability to do it. It was just whether I was willing to work those extra yards to get there.
Right.
And I think one thing that certainly helped me make the decision was obviously when you sign as a 17 or 18-year-old, you don't go necessarily straight into the first grade squad or team or move to Melbourne. The way that the club was set up with the Storm's reserve grade side, it was actually based in Brisbane.
Okay.
So I didn't have to move away from home straight away. I had the opportunity to stay around my family and train here in the first 12 months and play at North Devils.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was certainly a major factor in me choosing the Storm as well, was that I still had an opportunity, being only a 17-year-old, to stay at home, with mum and dad and my brother and sister still around, not having to move to a foreign city, not know anyone, and start looking after myself because I'd never ever been away from home.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sure.
So that certainly played a role, but it's a good point you make about believing yourself and believing in yourself and backing yourself to achieve something, because it is something that a lot of people struggle with. They have a bit of self-doubt, and sometimes that can stop people from achieving great things and achieving things at the highest level, or getting the very best out of yourself. And I must say, there's been times throughout my career, particularly when I was first starting out in first grade, that I'd step onto the field, as you mentioned, around all these quality players who had been playing in the NRL for a long time, and sort of look around and go, am I good enough to be here with these guys? Should I be here? But I think sometimes, I've found that can help sometimes, just to have that little bit of those little question marks to say, well, you need to go out and prove that you are.
Right.
You need to prove to yourself that you belong here and that you are good enough, rather than sort of walking into a place and think, I'm part of this, and I'm good enough to be here. And sometimes that can bring you undone.
Being a little bit too arrogant,
letting
things
a little bit arrogant,
a little bit arrogant,
a little bit sort of overconfident.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a difference between being confident and overconfident, and I think if there's always a little bit of sort of doubt in your mind, that just keeps you. I find it keeps you on your toes and always focused for improvement and wanting to better yourself.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really cool distinction. So now you're at North Devils, and you're 17 to 18 years old. So you play 12 months.
Yep.
And then you head down to Storm.
Yep.
And then once you're down in Melbourne, are you playing that next season? Are you on the paddock?
So what happened there? So I played in the first 12 months at North as turning 18 that year, and then the following year, 2002, that's when I make my debut.
Right.
For the Storm, rounds 5 and 6.
Nice. Okay.
Played. Still remember fairly significant days.
Walk us through, man. Like you've gone your whole life essentially. Like your dad has been this footy player. You're watching it, and then you finally get to the stadium, right? The NRL. Walk us through that moment.
Yeah, it's pretty. It was awesome, but extremely daunting at the same time.
I bet.
Because it was quite a strange debut week for me. It was on a Tuesday, early to midweek. I had a phone call. I was still in Brisbane, and I had a phone call from a staff member in Melbourne asking me to get on the next plane to Melbourne. I'm going to be playing first grade this week.
All right.
So it wasn't like a sort of slow progression to the first grade side. It was sort of just out of the blue. And what had happened was our halfback at the Storm at the time, Matt Orford, he was out with injury, and our backup halfback, who was the guy that was playing alongside me in Brisbane, North Devils, he'd gone down to replace him. Now, unfortunately, he was involved in a car accident, and they had no one left. So it's a strange story. I'd been signed by the Melbourne Storm as a number 9, a dummy half, but I played all of my juniors as a halfback or a 5'8", and it just so happened that they had no one left in the halfback position, and they called me up and said, "Mate, you're playing first grade at halfback this week." So,
wow.
So I flew down. It was a bit whirlwind for me, sort of flying down to Melbourne, meeting all these new people I'd never met before, and just getting thrown into the team and just pretty much told just to go out and play what I see. If any of the older boys want the ball, give it to them.
Yeah.
And just make sure you make your tackles. And I remember arriving at the ground. Obviously, I was quite nervous. My parents were there, brother and sister were there, so that was nice to have my family. My girlfriend was there, who's now my wife. So it was a special occasion, to be able to fulfil that childhood dream. And I still remember we played the Bulldogs, and they were the best team in the competition that year by quite a margin.
Right. Okay.
And so you can only imagine the scoreline at the end. We got beaten quite convincingly.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Rookie halfback, playing as the best team in the competition at the time. I think we got beaten. I think it was by close to 30 points, if not 30 points.
Geez.
So, but I was disappointed, obviously, with the result. But I'm very happy to get the Boo match out the way, and then I was given the opportunity to play the next week as well. We played against St George Illawarra at home, and we beat them. So
nice.
I was 50-50 my first two, and then our main halfback, he returned from injury after that match, and then I remained down in Melbourne for the rest of the year, but played out the season up at North in the reserve grade side, and then end of that year, that's when Craig Bellamy joined the club, and then I was given the opportunity to take the number one dummy half spot, and that was 03, and haven't looked back since.
Where we are, yeah.
Here we are now, yeah.
So that first game though, did whenever I hear the stories of someone going to play their first game at the highest level of competition, whether it be rugby or any other sport, and there's always I even get nervous thinking about the pressure, because if you make a major mistake, they're setting you back, and that's the first impression you've made on the team and on the players in the team. And so you said you got smashed by 30 points, but you must have had a good game for them to keep you on. Or did you make any major mistakes?
No, I think I played okay. I didn't have like a standout game or an outstanding game. But I just made sure. I just remember my approach to that game, or my mindset, to that game, was just about just get my job done as best I could. Don't make any errors, and that'll help the team perform.
Yeah. Wow.
As a guy on debut or a rookie guy, I didn't want to go out there and make everyone else's job harder by me making mistakes or errors or anything like that. So my mindset was just to go out there, do what I was asked to do by the coach, and not make any errors. And any time I had an opportunity to have a run or have a kick during play, do that.
Yeah.
The game hadn't changed from what I was playing week to week back in Brisbane. It was just that it was a little bit faster for a little bit longer.
Yeah, sure.
At that elite level.
Yeah, right. That's so interesting, mate. Because a lot of people would be thinking, debut match, it's all about you. You have to prove yourself, right? You have to. You want to look good, but your mentality was, I want the team to do well, so I need to just do my job. Yeah. And that might be the differentiator and why you're still in the game, because you have that mentality,
Yeah.
So that's a cool segue. I wanted to start talking about mindset, because you're an elite athlete. Based on the records that you hold and what you've done in the game, you'd be considered the best rugby league player to have ever played the game by many people. So are you able to summarize the mindset that you've been able to adopt that works best for you to get to this place where you are now in your career?
I think, my mindset, like for myself approaching games, is always about, I think first and foremost is team first. I think a lot of people can sort of fall into the trap of worrying about themselves and wanting themselves to look good and be the star and come up with the big plays and all this sort of stuff. But for me, it's always been about team first and what I can do in my role to help the team and help the players around me be the best they can be. Because the flow-on effect of that is, if the team plays well and all of your teammates around you are playing well, then you're going to play well as also. Right. You know what I mean? It's sort of team, it's sort of like a roundabout way to help yourself play well. So really, that's been my mindset ever since I can remember playing playing footy or being a part of a team. And I guess, for me personally, I've always held a very high standard of myself and my performances. I've never wanted to go out onto a field and let the team down or play below my standard. It just never sat well with me, or I didn't feel great. I know when I've come off the field and I know I haven't contributed the way I wanted to. I've always been really harsh on myself and tried to rectify that straight away. That next session I'm out there. So I think for me it was all, the mindset is always about team first. Believe in your ability and your skills that you have, and make sure that you prepare well, because very few people I've seen, sort of go through the week of training or their preparation for a match or whatever it is on the weekend, and be able to come up with a good performance if you haven't done the preparation.
Right.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's all about preparing yourself mentally and physically during the week. So when you get to that game, you don't even have to think about what you need to do.
Right.
You've done the hard work, and it just happens automatically for you on game day. So that's been my approach. So team first, always have a high standard about the work that you do, or the performances that you put in, and making sure that your preparation is done, and not going into a game sort of underdone.
Yeah, right.
Or half prepared and sort of try to guess your way through it, or think, oh no, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'll sort it out game day. It just doesn't work like that.
Okay.
You need to know what you're doing and understand what you're doing before you run out in that field on the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think when a lot of people hear the idea of make sure you're prepared, like in this example, they're imagining you're doing the drill, so it's second nature. So you don't have to think when you get out in the field. But is there anything that you do personally that's not team based with your mindset? Is there any, whether it's intentional or not, training that you do on the voice that's in your head that's speaking to you, whether it's the doubtful voice, like how to control it, or that sort of like that part of you that like wants the best out of your performance? Like, do you do any of that stuff during the week as part of your preparation?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt times throughout the week where that little voice in your head starts questioning, do you have to do that extra rep?
Yes. Do
you have to run that hard? Do you have to stay out here to do this extra skill work? You'll be okay.
Yeah.
You've done this for so long, you'll be all right. But you need to sort of flick that bloke off your shoulder pretty quickly.
Slippery little voice.
It
gets
is
in there, man.
Yeah, it is. And it comes in. It starts talking to you when things get a little bit hard and a little bit monotonous, and it's telling you to stop. It's telling you to give up. But that's the thing about your brain is it's so strong and it can control your body that you just gotta work through that. And that's what we talk a lot about at the Storm, and that's what Craig Bellamy is about building mental toughness. There's a lot of physically tough and physically strong people in our game in particular, but all elite sports. But the mentally strong ones, they're the ones that get the best out of themselves. Yeah. They're the ones that play at the highest level. They get to play, in our case, State of Origin, and they get to play for the Kangaroos or the Kiwis or Tonga or Samoa, whoever it is, Fiji. They're the ones that push through that voice that tell them to stop. That you've done enough. Why train this hard? Why push yourself? It's about getting out of the comfort zone. It's about asking yourself questions about how hard can I work? How good can you be? Right. How much more skill can you have? So there's moments, of course, where it might be a couple of times a day. It may be once a day. It might be once a week. Yep. That you may hear that voice in your head saying, "Mate, just go do recovery.
Yes.
Like, don't stay out here and do extra 45 minutes of goal kicking. Like, you've done enough. Like, you've kicked before, like you'll be okay. But you just got to flick that voice off,
How do you
off
do
your
that?
shoulder.
Walk us through that, because people listening to this, they're people who want to challenge themselves. That's why they're listening to this. They want to improve themselves. They're in the gym. They're pushing themselves.
Yeah.
And everyone has that voice. And some of us, it comes up more often than for you, right? Because you've trained. So what advice would you give to someone, practical advice, when that voice comes up? What do you actually do? Because it's, sometimes you can say, it's easier here talking to say, just flick it off your shoulder. But when it's 36 degrees outside and you're having to kick 40 minutes worth of field goals after training for 2 hours, that's a lot harder. The voice doesn't just leave,
No, that's right.
So what have you done? How would you go about that?
Well, obviously, with my job, it's a little bit different because I need to be, as I said earlier, I need to be ready come game day.
Right.
So if I give in to that voice, then I'm not going to be ready. You know what I mean? So I think for the general sort of population, or the people just trying to get the best out of themselves, whether it's at the gym or they're trying to do some fitness work or anything like that, it's really just about competing against yourself.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like you don't necessarily have to be involved in a team sport or a game or even at elite level. Always compete against yourself. Ask yourself when you hear that voice, challenge yourself. Like, no, I'm going to go an extra 5 minutes now.
Yeah.
When you hear that voice, push yourself, and I find once you've done it, and you finish that extra 5 minutes after you've heard that voice in your head saying, "I can't go any further."
Yeah.
Once you've achieved that, the next time you jump on the treadmill or whatever it is you're working on, you think, well, I was able to achieve that extra 5 minutes last time.
Yeah.
So this time I'm going to do it again plus another 2 minutes.
That's right.
And you slowly build and what you do build is the tolerance to hard work and the pain that your body feels, the pain that you feel mentally, and you build a resilience to that voice that continually pops up. And from there, that's where you're able to get the very best out of yourself. It's very easy to train any sort of training in a comfortable state or in your comfort zone, which more people talk about. You know what I mean? It's when you start to step out of that comfort zone and start to challenge yourself and compete against yourself. That's when you see improvement in whatever area you're training.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great advice. So, do you have that same, as far as pain is concerned? Like that's amazing advice. What about when that voice comes up when you're having to kick a goal to win a game, and you've got not only your voice, but you've got hecklers on the sideline.
Yeah, I've had a few of those
shouting at you, and so you've got these other voices that you can't control.
Yeah.
What's going through your head at that moment?
Well, that really comes down to what we were talking about earlier about the preparation.
Yes.
And the repetition that you put in at training. It all just comes back to that automatic state of thinking and your processes and your technique and your setup and all the things that are involved in the goal kick. So there's more so now when I start hearing other people in the crowd, sort of heckling and giving me a bit of grief, whatever. Like I almost have a bit of a giggle inside.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's how relaxed I am.
Retrained your mind.
Yeah. It's almost like, well, I've put in the time at training to prepare myself for this situation, any type of situation I'm in the game, whether it's to win after the buzzer, whether we're 20 points up, whether it's in golden point or whatever, and we need a penalty goal or need some points or whatever it is. In my mind, I know I've done this. I've done the work.
Yeah, right.
I've kicked goals from this position many times. All I'm hearing now is just noise in the background. Okay, so noise really. What is noise? Like to you when I'm standing in my position ready to kick a ball, it's just background noise.
Yeah,
it's not going to put me off what I've done because I've done the training, I've done the preparation to have myself ready to do that. So Yeah, it's been a couple of cool moments in my career where I've had to have some sort of pretty important kicks when I'm out near the sidelines.
Yeah.
I've heard some pretty colourful sort of feedback coming towards me. But they're the moments that you that's what preparation is. That's what training is for, is to have you ready for those situations. And but that's how I go about any sort of moment that I come across there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And do you have any strange pre-game superstitions or routines that you stick to?
A lot of people do, but I don't really have any, apart from whether you see this as a superstition or routine. I always put my left sock on first, and the right sock, and then left boot, right boot.
Yes.
I'm left-footed, so that might be why. But other than that, I'm pretty sort of low-key and casual leading into a game. Whereas I see a lot of boys, they're extremely like focused, and they need to
headphones on.
Yeah, all the headphones and all that sort of stuff to get them ready. Whereas it might be because of a little bit my personality, my demeanour. I'm quite sort of laid back and relaxed, and that's what gets me best prepared for the match.
Yeah, right.
I just like to relax and feel comfortable and feel good about what's about to happen.
Yeah, cool, man. So let's wouldn't mind asking you now a little bit about how you do go about your recovery. You've mentioned that a few times now, how important it is. So what's how do you approach sleep? Because sleep is where our body recovers most, right? So do you have anything that you do, any routines that you hold tight and close to you when it comes to your sleep?
Yeah, I do. First one, which I think for me is really important, is that I don't stress out about how long I sleep or how good a sleep it is. I think, don't get me wrong, sleep is very important. I understand that, but I don't try and force myself to lay down and shut my eyes. I think that's when you can sort of come unstuck with the whole sort of sleep, the thoughts on sleep. So I think it's whatever suits the individual. I think you hear a lot of people say, oh, you need 9 to 10 hours, or 7 to 9 hours, or 8 hours is the best. I've tried all different sort of ways of sleeping techniques and all that sort of stuff. So I find if I sleep too long, then I wake up in the morning really.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Really
drained. Hey,
drained. Yeah, it's like I don't feel good at all.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Whereas they're saying, mate, sleep 9 hours and you'll feel really refreshed. I feel terrible.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? So I think everyone's, as we all are, individuals. I think you got to find what works for you. I find that anywhere from sort of 6.5 to sort of 8 hours is really good for me.
Right,
that's ideal.
Yep.
So I think what I see as important for sleeping is that you try and get a routine as far as what time you go to bed and what time you get up. That's what I find.
Yeah.
Try and build that into your life, and I think physically and mentally your body starts to operate a lot more efficiently. Rather than sort of going, 7 hours is sort of optimal for me, so I'm going to go to sleep at midnight and get up at 7 a.m. and then the following night I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. and get up at 5, and then you're all over the shop like that.
Yeah.
I try to be in bed around 10 p.m. Eyes closed by 10:30, and if I sleep till 6 or 6:30, then that's really good for me.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. That's optimal for me. So
it's more about the routine of the wake time.
Absolutely,
the sleep time.
Yeah.
So a lot of science is supporting that notion as well. That it's so important because it sets your circadian rhythms, and so
that's
your
right.
sleep patterns remain consistent. So your body actually knows, I've been going to bed.
I'm shutting
this
down
time for the last month. I know that it's hit this time. I'm about to go to sleep. I'm ready to go to sleep.
That's right.
As opposed to what you were saying, someone who's going to bed at 12 for a few nights, then at 10 they try to go to sleep, and they're going, I'm not
Doesn't
tired,
work.
man.
Yeah, it doesn't
Because your
work.
body's used to going to bed at 12. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So what about food? I remember a conversation we had last year when we were doing a shoot. We were chatting about food, and you mentioned when you were younger, as we all sort of disregard food, or not
Yeah.
disregard, you just eat whatever tastes good and whatever's available.
Yeah.
And more recently, you've become quite serious about what you put into your body.
Mm.
So do you want to talk about that?
Yep. That's I probably forgot to mention that earlier about why I feel so good at the moment. And I think my approach to food now is certainly it's played a huge role. And I'll be honest, I remember when I was a lot younger and I was first started playing NRL. We had dietitians and all these type of things, but I guess the way of eating wasn't as it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. It wasn't spoken about as much.
Right.
It was sort of like, hey guys, eat steak, eat pasta, eat some rice. Make sure you
you're eating.
Make sure you have veggies.
Yeah.
Make sure you have veggies. Leading into the game, back when I started, it was all about carb loading.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the phase of eating back then.
Mm-hmm.
What was good for athletes. It wasn't until a few years ago. Back to when I was younger. Like I'd if I was a bit lazy, didn't feel like cooking, I'd go and grab takeaway.
Yeah.
And I think looking back on it now, that probably is a big reason why when I got in the gym, I didn't feel like I wanted to push myself physically, or I probably couldn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
it's not fueling your body.
You are what you eat, really,
Yeah.
aren't you? You are what you eat. You are what you put in your body. It's like it's funny. My dad used to always talk to me about food and having good eating habits. Coming into games and all that sort of stuff. So you get a Formula One race car. You're not going to put regular unleaded in a race car because it's just the engine's not going to perform at its peak. You put race fuel in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a way that it was. My dad obviously used to dumb things down a little bit for me as a young fella, but so I understood it. But he was absolutely right. So now my thoughts or my approach to eating is obviously just in general, just eat cleaner.
So for you, what's that mean? What's your race fuel?
I tend to I stick mainly just to red meats and veggies now. It's not my entire diet, but that's what I find works best for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, I like to eat some fish every now and again. Not a lot, but as long as I have a balance of some good meats and vegetables. Certainly in the morning, some protein with eggs and bacon. I eat a lot of avocado.
Yes.
Some nice natural fats, which is good. But I don't really go near takeaway food anymore.
Yeah.
I'll have a little splurge here and there, but I'm talking maybe once every 3 weeks, once every 4 weeks. I'll have a takeaway.
Really, and then you feel like garbage after that.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible. I have a meal of takeaway and then an hour later you're like, I'm hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a funny thing. You can have this huge meal and then you're starving.
I feel awful and I'm still hungry. Like it's done nothing for me. So I think that's another reason why I feel quite good, or feel the best I've felt in my entire career.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, cool. And so, what about alcohol? Actually, that's a good question. Do you try to avoid it, or do you have specific types of alcohol? What's your take on that?
I don't avoid it, but I don't drink alcohol excessively.
Sure.
I've never been a huge drinker in general. But I do like to have a beer every now and again. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I enjoy a beer with my mates, and particularly the team after playing a game of footy. I think that's important. Becoming from a social aspect as well. I think it's nice to just have a beer and wind down and
be healthy in that regard.
Be healthy, yeah. But I try not to drink any alcohol sort of often. I may have, on average, I may have a couple of beers sort of every fortnight, maybe.
Right. Yeah. And do you notice the same thing now that you're real sensitive with how food affects your body?
Yep.
After a couple of beers,
absolutely,
you feel a bit off. And
absolutely,
a bit slow.
Yep. Absolutely. I think that's sort of like a natural thing as you get a little bit older too.
Yeah.
It has a bit greater effect on you. But even looking back to the younger days, you handle the alcohol a little bit better as far as like a recovery sort of aspect. But I still remember being a young fella, and it sort of inhibits your recovery and you sort of your general sort of approach to training after having a few beers is not great.
Yes.
Given sort of the state of your mind and where you're at body wise. But my general sort of approach is that after a game, this is during season, obviously. We'll have a game, and I'll sit down and have a couple of quiet beers with the team, just to sort of, from a social point of view, I think it's important.
Yes.
But from there, I rarely go out and have a beer.
Not having beers at lunch or anything, or
none of that.
Six beers on a Sunday.
None of that stuff. No,
and really conscious about what you put in your body.
And particularly like talking about this part of the year now, during pre-season, our training is that difficult at the moment. Like it's you just couldn't afford to have a beer or risk having a beer because you need to be ready to go the following day.
Yep.
Maybe if I was to have a beer, it would be sort of on a Saturday afternoon.
Where you don't have to go back in the next day.
I'm not training Sunday. I have that day to recover, and then I'm ready to go Monday.
You don't need anything to make the training any harder than it already is.
No way. Absolutely not.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, I got a couple interesting questions that I want to ask, that we ask everyone that comes on. It's really just to get to know you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
First question. What is something that you believe to be true that almost nobody else believes?
Oh, dear.
We can come back to it as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
How many? I must say, more and more people, and probably there's a lot of people that believe what I believe, but more and more people I speak to now don't believe that people have ever gone to the moon.
Yeah.
Do you believe that? What do you believe?
I don't know, man. Like, this is sort of, you gotta put this in with. I think I do believe it.
This is why I say this. I believe. So I'm going to say I believe they went to the moon. It's a bit left of field.
It is a little bit, but the thing is, I do believe it. But then you hear some people talk about it online, and they have compelling evidence, and you go, "No, they didn't go to the moon."
This is my answer.
Yeah, and you think they did? Yeah,
I think there's more people that don't believe it now,
right?
Compared to the people that do believe. So that's something I do believe.
Sure.
I'm backing Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin.
That's how I sort of feel. I'm like, well, the evidence is strong that they didn't go, but I like to be positive about the whole situation. I want to be optimistic.
Same.
It's cool to think that we went to the moon. So, okay, no, that's a cool answer, man. What has been a purchase that you've made that has given you the most benefit for your health and fitness?
I think, well, there's two. My push bike.
Okay.
I'm on that a lot. Particularly with my family, we go on rides every now and again. So that's always cool. Like even I'm like, say I have a day off or on the weekend where we're not training, I can jump on my bike, ride down to the cafe, sort of sit down and have a coffee or have some breakfast or whatever, ride back home. So it's getting me active even on my days off.
Yes.
I'm still keeping active. We go on some nice trail rides and we got some nice riding tracks down in Melbourne, which is great. And the other one is my golf clubs.
Right. Okay.
So I've been finding in the last couple of years in particular, especially around this time of year where training is so grueling and it can be a bit tedious at times. After training, so we finish late in the afternoon, go home, we get the family sort of sorted, help my wife out with the kids, getting them to bed, and because of daylight savings down there, the sun's up until sort of 9 p.m. once everything's sorted at home, I can grab my sticks, go down to my my golf club. No one's on the course, and I actually just have a wander around like 9 holes.
Yeah, wow.
Just by myself.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. No, well, it's both relaxing and I'm still being active.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Are you quite competitive? You said you love golf. You're pretty competitive. You got a handicap?
I do have a handicap. I don't particularly want to share it at the moment because I'm still working on it. Right, okay. But the funny thing is, it's actually funny you brought that up about being competitive. When I was actually handing in my first few cards to get a handicap, sort of like I'd hit a bogey or like a double bogey, and I was absolutely filthy. You know, like this is what a low handicap.
Yep.
But the guys I was playing with who already had one, I was like, no. When you're handing your first few cards, like blow your score out on purpose. So you get a higher handicap than what you really are.
Yep.
So when you're playing the golf days,
playing against people who are not as good, and you're going to win yourself a tournament.
Your handicap's gonna help you win.
right, gotcha.
I was like, yeah, right.
Yes.
if I want to justify it that way,
yeah. Okay, cool. All right, what's one habit that you're trying to change?
Be better on my phone. As in, I'm not on it a lot, so that's what I'm trying to change.
Yeah, it's funny because most people would have the opposite challenge at the moment. I know I do. I have to be at home. I have to make sure I put it away. So the missus is, not seeing me distracted and looking at the screen with notifications. But you've got the opposite problem.
I'm the opposite. Yeah. So I'm always getting in trouble for, one, not returning a text, not returning a phone call, or looking at my emails.
Yeah, right.
So everything's so digital these days, like that's how we communicate. But I'm happy to I'll put my phone down. When I walk through the door, I'll put my phone down in the room at the front of my house, and I might not touch it for about 4 hours.
Yeah, maybe that's why you're so relaxed.
I think it might be. Yeah, I think it might be. But certainly that's one area I need to improve on. It's not so much, sort of getting my phone and looking at apps and different things and social media and all that stuff. It's actually communication skills, and actually phoning people back and returning texts and all that sort of stuff. So that's one thing I want to improve on.
Yeah, interesting. Mate, what's been your favorite failure?
Favorite failure? Wow, this is a difficult question because we don't like to fail, do we?
No.
I reckon one that sticks out in mind is it was actually in 2000, and we spoke briefly about it before about how I was scouted by the Storm. And so after playing in that state carnival, I represented Brisbane. There was an opportunity to be then selected in the Queensland side. But what happened was from that carnival that we played in Rockhampton, there was 2 teams selected to play against each other, which would then form a Queensland side from that game. And that Queensland side was going to play before the State of Origin. It was going to be the curtain raiser for the State of Origin match in Brisbane. And so we played that game, and I missed out on selection. I had my heart set on playing for Queensland in the under-17s team, and I missed out. And I remember thinking after the game, well, that's it. Like,
it's done.
That's it. Like, the dream's over.
Yeah, wow.
If I can't get picked for the under-17s Queensland side, where a few of my mates that I played footy with, they got picked as well. I was thinking, well, if I can't get picked in this, that's it.
How are you going to make it to the NRL if you can't make it? Stateside?
Exactly.
Right.
And but I remember, my parents speaking to me afterwards and just saying, mate, like, it's okay. Like, it's a setback and it's a challenge. Everyone faces this stuff in your life.
Yeah.
And I just remember them saying, if this is the biggest setback you have in your life or the biggest challenge you face, you're gonna have a pretty good life.
Yeah,
mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that that you're gonna, mate, there's gonna be more opportunities to go out and show what you're capable of doing and whatnot. And so from then I thought, I'm gonna make the most of the opportunity that I have going forward. And I think it might have been a week later, I think that's when the Storm approached my parents about me joining the Storm, and there we go.
Yeah. So, a similar question, it's slightly different though. What's been a failure that you've had that's actually at the time seemed as a negative, but in the future it's actually been something that allowed a door of opportunity to open up to you? So the failure has actually been a positive.
Oh, geez, I think.
And again, we can come back to it.
Yeah, I think. I think probably looking at the 2006 grand final, where we played against the Broncos, and I think we may have entered that game as favourites, but the way that the Broncos approached the match and the way they played, they had a lot of big game players, a lot of experienced players, right, like that have played in the big matches, and they really showed us how to play in a big game and how to handle a big game. So for me, that was my first sort of taste of like significant failure, both as a team and as an individual at an elite level. But I think going into the next season, it made us even that more hungry to go back to the grand final again.
Yeah, right.
And to not so much to right any wrongs or make up for 2006. It was, no matter what happened in 07, whether we won or not, was not going to make up for the loss we had in 06. But it was just about learning from what had happened in 2006 and the way we approached that week and the way we went about, playing the game and everyone's mindset for that big occasion. I think we went into 07 a lot more relaxed about the grand final and more about embracing the week and the commitments we had throughout the week, not just training, but commitments with the NRL and the build up and the fan aspect and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So I think for me, I know personally that was that negative that happened 12 months earlier was a positive for me. Just having my head around the expectation of the week and the occasion and the atmosphere that's going to be there, and we certainly handled that match the following year much better than what we did in 06, and history will show that the result shows the way we went about it as well.
Yeah, you were able to take the lessons from the loss.
Yeah,
and then that's really cool. That's a great answer. Are you much of a reader?
I do a little bit of reading.
Is there any book or film that's really inspired you?
I've read, well, as far as reading, I like reading autobiographies and real life stuff, about people's lives and certain situations in their life and things like that. Movies, I'm not a huge movie buff.
So what about the book? Is there a biography that you sort of like think back on when you're in training camp, or something that's inspired you to just get more out of yourself?
There's probably not one book that stands out to me. Although there are parts of I don't know if you know this guy, Chris Kyle. He's an American sniper.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sure, yes.
So there's parts of his book, and obviously there was a movie made about him, so it probably works into both here. About the situation that he found himself in and the actual role he had in the military, and it wasn't a pleasant role, as anyone would know that's read any of his book or seen the movie. But I think he, as a sniper, or the job that he played, or the role that he played, I should say, in his unit, was one that had a lot of resilience, a lot of mental toughness, a lot of things that I've spoken about already.
Sure.
And it was always team first. You see the way the guy carried himself. It was always about his mate, or his fellow soldier, or about keeping them safe and making sure that they could perform well or get their job done by fulfilling his role.
Mm-hmm.
So that I drew sort of comparisons, although it's very different, very different environment that he worked in and what we work in. But I think the same principles apply.
Leadership principles, right?
I think the same principles apply to any sort of job or industry where if you're a person that's selfless and you want to do the job the best you can to help your fellow workmates, teammates, whatever they are, I think you're going to be a pretty successful person.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really like that. So, what's the most amazing thing you've actually seen on the field? It can be during a game, during training. What's something that you've seen that sticks with you?
There's probably a couple. I remember getting the opportunity to play in the Centenary Test, 2008. It was at the SCG, where we wore the Centenary colours of the Kangaroos. The occasion was just amazing. Where I'd never played at the Sydney Cricket Ground before. You come out of the dressing sheds and you have to actually walk down the race in the middle of the crowd where they're all just going off and pat you on the back and that sort of thing. But there was a moment in that game where there was a kick put into the New Zealand team in goal area, and for all money, it looked like the ball was going to go dead, but it actually popped up in the air, and I think it was Greg Inglis came flying through. He sort of launched himself in the air, grabbed the ball mid-air, threw it over the back of his head. Into the hands of, I think it was Mark Gasnier.
Okay.
And we ended up scoring a try. And I remember seeing that and just thinking that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen on the footy field. Like no one, where the ball was, that far past the dead ball line, you just thought, well, that ball's gone, and we'll just go back to the 30-metre line, get ready to tackle.
Yeah.
But somehow he found a way to get his hands on it and get the ball back into play, and we scored a try. So that was a pretty memorable sort of moment where you just, some freakish sort of talent made it happen.
Yeah, that's cool. You've probably seen a lot of that, actually. Talking about freakish talent, who is your biggest bromance? Is it Billy? Is it Billy? Because you guys were born on the same day, right? An hour apart.
Yeah, same day. So I must mention he was born first, so he's older.
Okay.
Even though I look a little bit older than him, he's officially older than me. But look, he and I have obviously we formed a very sort of tight bond over the time that we played, and having played so many games together at all different levels, and having such a unique relationship on the field certainly helped off the field as well.
Sure.
My family and his family sort of quite closely aligned with sort of being married similar time and having children similar time. So it's as much as our footy career matched up, so did our personal life, our life away from footy as well. So he's someone that's I'm very close to on and off the field. Not on the field anymore. He's finished up, but certainly away from the game. But another guy too, Jonathan Thurston, and that relationship is a little bit different. Where he and I grew up in a similar area down in the sort of Logan area, and
I think Thursday. Did he go to O'Keefe Church? Was that it?
Yeah, he did.
That was my primary school. That's right.
He's went there. He played for South Sunnybank.
Yes,
and so we actually played footy against each other from the age of 10.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've known each other since we were little fellas, and it's quite sort of funny the way our footy careers panned out. Together, like we played against each other as like 10-year-olds, and then as I mentioned before, in the junior representative stuff with Brisbane teams, we played in a couple of those together. And then he went sort of a different path. He actually moved to Toowoomba, then to Sydney. He got picked up by the Bulldogs.
Okay.
And then I was still in here in Brizzy. But then we come into first grade together. Pretty much started playing State of Origin similar time, and for Australia similar time, and we were
Right.
able to play so many games together.
how
It
cool
was
is
just
that?
really sort of freaky the way it panned out. So yeah, definitely those two guys. If you want to call it a bromance, we'll call it a bromance.
Yeah, okay.
We share.
No, that's cool. That's a cool story. What's so mate, you are, as you know, you are a sporting hero, even outside of sport, really, to so many young Australians. But who's your hero? Who inspires you to be more and do more?
I don't know if I have a hero now like I did when I was younger.
Sure.
Obviously, as a young boy, any children, you always look up to your parents.
Right.
Well, most kids do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a grandparent or an uncle or an auntie or something like that. But definitely my parents when I was younger. I had some footy heroes.
Yeah.
When I was a younger fella, obviously Wally Lewis is the king.
Yeah.
Not too many young people would sort of. You mentioned Wally Lewis now, and is that fellow that played footy? No, but for me, when I was young, he was the bee's knees in rugby league, and then sort of that progressed into a period where footy started getting serious for me, and then that was Darren Lockyer, and fortunately, I was able to play a lot of footy games alongside Lockie for both Queensland and Australia. But now I don't look up to someone to inspire me. I sort of flip it and the other way around, and I think, well, I've got 3 young children now, and wife at home, and I feel like I try and inspire them.
Yeah,
with
the roles
what I
change.
do. The roles change. There's obviously people out there in sport that I enjoy watching, and I get sort of a lot of satisfaction from watching them do their thing. But my approach now is that I try and inspire my 3 children to be the very best they can be, and when I walk onto the field, I have sort of in the back of my mind, I just want to make those 4 people, my wife and my 3 children, proud of what I do in that 80 minutes.
Yeah.
I walk off and they're proud of what I've done.
How cool is that? Yeah, that's great. And from the outside, like looking at you as a professional athlete or any professional athlete, especially having a career as long as yours, and for someone like yourself who always appears to the public in such a professional way, your life seems like rainbows and this ideal life, right?
I wish.
Yeah, exactly. It seems idyllic to many people, man. But of course, with the obstacles you've had to overcome to get to where you are, there has to have been tough times. So, do you want to talk about some of the darker moments you've had throughout your career, or even when you're younger, or your career current or recently?
Yeah.
The reason I asked that question specifically is there's a lot of people listening who are going through their own struggles, right?
Yeah.
So when they see someone like yourself who may have their own difficulties that they have to face, it makes people realize it's a part of life.
Yeah.
And it also inspires them to get over what they're doing. So,
Yeah.
Did you want to touch on some of that?
Yeah, that's okay. I think more so now than ever, given social media in particular, sort of Twitter stuff, and more so Instagram. Yeah. People see other people's lives, as you mentioned, as this fantastic, wonderful holiday that just
never ends.
It's every day is a great day.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, it's not. And most of us, well, when I say most of us, I'm saying 95% of us, we live normal lives.
Yeah.
We live average lives. Everyone has their up days and everyone has their down days.
Yeah.
And nothing is different for elite sports people. I think there's sort of this feeling or mindset towards being a sports person as this fantastic life. And don't get me wrong, it's a great life that we get to live because we're actually doing something that we love to do.
Yes.
Not everyone has the opportunity to do something that they wanted to do since they were 5 years of age. That unfortunately, that's the way the world works. But there's challenges away from football. There's challenges in the game that you don't see. The general public, the general fan, or just even people that look at sports people, they see the 80 minutes on the weekend, where they put the uniform on, you go out and play in front of big crowds, and then you go off the TV, and that they think that's your life. But it's not.
No.
It's really not. Because you walk away from the field, and I'm talking about just the football aspect of this. I'm not talking about outside of footy. You walk off the field, and the people don't see the injuries that you get from playing the game. They don't see the morning after the game where you're lying in bed and you struggle to get out of bed because of you've got back issues, or you've got chronic arthritis in your knee or your groins, and you can hardly get out of bed. They don't see the midweek trip to the doctor where you got to get injections in your spine, to settle some sort of back injury or any joint in your body. And that's not me sort of trying to dramatise or be sort of hysterical about what sports people do. That's
actually happening.
It's just reality. It's reality. But I don't think a lot of people sort of realise that, and the actual physical pain that you have to go through to play. And I know a lot of people say, well, you paid well, and you get to play sport, and that's just part of it. Well, we realise that as well. That's why you don't hear sportsmen complaining. It's part of our job. We understand that, and we take it on board. But then away from the game, as far as your life away from the game, as I mentioned before, I've got 3 children. They like children. They like to be rat bags at times. They like to test out the parents, and so we're like normal people. Right. You have stuff going on at home. You got bills to pay. You got the mortgage to pay. You have obviously extended family things going on there all the time. So it's not this. It's not this, as you said, rainbow type of perfect life that you live. There's challenges that you have to overcome all the time, as well as then having to front up a training and make sure that you're doing your job the best you can. And it's a high. You gotta say this in our industry. It's about performing, and it's about winning at the end of the day. So that's probably where your question is sort of going, is that no matter what's going on in my life or my teammates' lives, when you turn up to training, you got to get your job done. There's no questioning about that. And then come the weekend, especially, if you don't play well, then you don't have a job the following week. You know what I mean?
A little pressure, man.
You know what I mean? That's just where our job's at. It's not like you can go to work and just sort of have a quiet day and then no one says anything, and you turn up the next day and do the job again. You don't get your job done properly in our industry. You may get one chance, but the second week, if you don't get your job done again, you're gone. And that's your livelihood. So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectation on you to do well, and to be at your very best all the time. But it's just about building that ability to manage any sort of challenge that comes up, any hurdles in your life, and to deal with that. But when it comes to time to work, or prepare, setting that aside, getting your job done the best you can.
That's right.
And then obviously getting back into it.
Do you have an example at all that I don't know that someone might relate to, or example in your, because you've had such a long career, so there must be plenty. But do you have an example of a time like that where it was like where it just seemed a bit, it was just a tough moment where you had to like reassess?
I use this one all the time, and more so because most people are sort of, they're aware of it, was in 2010 when our team was we were forced to play the competition without any points.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because of some salary cap breaches, and so that was a really difficult year. Just with our approach to our training, our preparation, and knowing that no matter what you'd done during the week or how you play on the weekend or the result, it didn't amount to anything.
Pushing a rock up a hill.
It just didn't.
Let's do it again the next week.
It just didn't amount to anything.
Yeah.
And we had to turn up for another. I think it was a further, sort of 20 games to do that. So, and and again, this is not. I'm not saying this for any sympathy or any of that. That's a long time ago. And,
sure. Yeah.
I think we've all dealt with the sort of demons of it, but talking about those experiences of that year, that was probably the greatest example of overcoming some adversity, overcoming a huge challenge of having to front up every week, knowing that essentially what your job involves in winning and why you're actually there to play, it wasn't being counted for.
Yeah, especially if you turn up and you got an injury or something, gone, that was for nothing.
Yeah, that's right. And so you have a bit of a niggling injury. You got a sore ankle, or your shoulder's been playing up for a couple of weeks. You think like, well, why am I playing this week? Like, it doesn't mean anything. But we had to find a way to sort of change that mindset and get our attitude right each week to front up and play. And at the end of the day, we end up sitting down and deciding, or we're discussing about the way we're going to go about that year. And the first thing that was spoken about was everyone's got pride, right? So, when you turn up to training and when you're playing the game on the weekend, be proud of what you're doing. You know what I mean? You don't want to let the situation drop your standards and the way you go about things. So, first and foremost, make sure you're proud of the way you train and the way you play on the weekend.
Yeah. Just that in and of itself changes the whole way you approach it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to be proud of yourself if you go out there and not care about the outcome.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. And that's what we did. That's what we did for the whole year. It was a difficult year to get through.
Sure.
Obviously, as the year went on, it sort of got harder and harder. But we worked together to try and get through that situation, and we come out the other side now.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Well, we've got just a couple more questions left. We have to get off to shoot a couple of videos. So, what advice would you give a young person who aspires to become a top athlete in their chosen field, and what advice do you think they should ignore?
Advice they should ignore? Well, plenty.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get people coming from everywhere to give you advice on this is the way you should do this and this is the way you should think about that. And I think just be comfortable with the advice that you're taking in. Be cautious of who's giving you the advice. If someone's had experience in that sort of field that you're in and they've had success in that field, probably take their advice.
Yeah.
But if it's someone that's just sort of blowing in and, like, this is my thoughts, this is what you should do, probably sort of have a little bit of a think about that before you actually believe it.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think the two things that I'd say would just be prepared to work outside your comfort zone. That was something I actually had to improve on when I was first coming into first grade. I was happy to, if we were given certain times to make with any sort of running drills or any conditioning drills or anything, I'd make the time by 1 or 2 seconds,
right,
and still have a little bit of gas in the tank. Okay, so Craig Bellamy, he sort of spotted that pretty quickly, and he pulled me aside one day and said, "Mate, I feel like you're training within yourself a little bit, and I think you can give the team more, but more importantly, you can push yourself a bit more. So if you want to be the very best you can be, you need to start doing that at training." And sort of from that day, I did that, and I think that was invaluable, that advice.
Great advice, isn't it?
Yeah, invaluable, because as I mentioned, you could think that, well, I'm getting the times, I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
No one's going to sort of come at me, but you'll stay there your whole life. You'll never get better.
Mm-hmm.
You'll just stay in that same spot, average Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are happy to do that, but if you want to be the very best you can be and be the best in that field, then you need to push yourself.
And you does that overflow into other areas of your life?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give us an example of how that works.
Anything I do now is just you want to be the very best you can be, and that goes into me being a father and a husband now. That's it's sort of weird, sort of comparing advice from my head coach in a rugby league team to sort of off field, but I think if you apply that to your life in general and being the best person you can be, I think the other part of your life, whatever job you have, you're going to be the very best person in that field as well.
Yeah, right.
So for me, it's about being the best person, the best father, best husband I can be, which in turn gives me that good balance and gives me an opportunity to be the best rugby league player I can be.
Yeah.
So that's how I applied it there. And then the other advice would be just back yourself. Believe in your abilities. And being nervous is okay.
That's cool. That's good advice.
Yeah, it's okay to go to something new and be a little bit sort of nervous about it, because that means you actually care about it.
Yeah,
it means something to you.
Yes.
If you turn up to a job interview or you're doing some sort of athletics or something, or whatever it is on the weekend, any sort of competition, and you're not nervous, that probably means, well, I don't really care about the result.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens here. I don't care if I don't get the job, or I don't care if I don't come first or get a place or something. It doesn't, this whatever I'm doing doesn't really interest me. So I think being nervous is a good thing. Being able to control that is something else. It's another discussion, but believe in yourself, and if you feel a little bit nervous about something, that's okay. It's a good thing.
Part of it. Yeah, that's really cool. So when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, and you've temporarily lost that focus that you train so hard for, what do you do, or what sort of questions do you ask yourself?
That's a good question, because in my role or in my sport, you gotta really quickly self-regulate.
Yes.
You got to sort of stop and sort of think about, hang on a minute, I'm not doing something right here. What was it that I practiced all week to do, and what does the team need me to do? And you got to get back into that role straight away.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? You got to get what's my next job?
Comes back to the preparation. Again.
Comes back to preparation, and find your next job in whatever you're doing. Like, so for me, as an example, if we have the ball, I'm running the ball, I drop the ball. That wasn't in the plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That wasn't in my preparation to make an error. So straight away, obviously I'm going to be upset and disappointed with my mistake. But then straight away, I've got to go, right, what's my next job? I've got to get in the defensive line. I've got to make my tackles.
Yes. Okay.
And when we get the ball back, go back into my role for the team there.
What we're prepared for. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. So who's been the toughest player? The toughest opponent so far?
Toughest opponent. Geez, there's been a few. I could name a few guys that were just physically tough.
Right.
Shane Webke.
You always hear that.
Petro Sivanasiva, two guys playing in the same team too. So you had
cool.
both of them in the same game for the Broncos.
And when you say tough, because you're taking a lot of those hits, those big guys are running at you. You're right in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And what do you say? What do you mean? What's the difference that you feel between someone like that and then just another forward running at you?
Well, just obviously their the hardness of their bodies. Like when I played those guys, they were hardened.
Genetically
first graders. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they've been in the game and they were tough and they didn't mind taking a knock.
Right.
So every time they ran the ball, you had to be committed to your tackle,
Right.
or else they were going to run over the top of you. Ruben Wiki was the same.
Yep.
He obviously started his early career was with Canberra. Then he went over to the New Zealand Warriors, played a couple of test matches against him as well. He was just another man that was just a hard man. At times, really didn't care about his own body either.
Yep.
Which can be
dangerous everyone else,
for everyone.
Just throws himself around.
Particularly people trying to tackle them.
Yeah.
I think those three guys were in particular like three physically tough players I played against. But as far as a one-on-one sort of contest, I've got to go back to my the days when I used to play against a guy named Denny Badiris. So he was the dummy half for Newcastle Knights for New South Wales, and he was the Australian hooker before I took over as the Australian hooker, and he and I sort of had a sort of healthy rivalry.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't like using the word rivalry, but it was just we were two competitive guys playing in the same position. And at that stage, Denny had the green and gold jersey, and I had aspirations of being there one day. You know what I mean? So, and he was just a guy that, a lot like me, sort of slightly built compared to the rest of the big fellas playing the game, but was just very brave and a guy that was just tough as take the hits, get up every time.
Right.
You have to tackle all the big fellas, but just did his job every week.
Yep.
And that was something that me starting out as a rookie, I really admired. So I used to watch him a lot and do some videos on him and
study him.
Yeah, study him a bit and check out the sort of things he would do during the game. And he played a part in me, sort of building from just a rookie first grader into a consistent first grader and then into a representative player.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. So, mate, I think that's it for now. We've covered a lot. It's been a great chat. Was there any question? You've been to plenty of interviews, been on the radio plenty of times. Is there any question that you wish someone would ask you that no one's asked you yet?
Can I say no?
Yeah, that's fine. It means I did a good job.
Yeah, no,
that did a good job,
that was
I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. As I said, that was my first podcast, so that was cool.
Yeah, man. It was really good getting to know you, and I'm sure people listening are going to get a lot out of that to get to see a different side of you that we don't get to hear about usually.
No, that's right.
On telly or on these radio stations. So, yeah, cool, mate. Well, that was it. Thanks for coming in. Well, we've actually got to go shoot some videos now, so... maybe we get some food first and go do that. Cool.
We'll have a meal and do some photos.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, mate.
Cool.
Cheers, Cam.
Ta.